The emergency klaxon screamed through the United Nations Space Defense Headquarters, buried deep beneath Geneva. Admiral Marcus Okonkwo ran down the corridor, his coffee forgotten on his desk 3 floors above. People rushed past him in both directions, their faces pale with confusion and fear. Something impossible was happening above Earth's atmosphere, and nobody understood what they were seeing. Marcus burst into the command center where dozens of operators sat frozen at their stations, staring at screens filled with data that made no sense. Commander Rachel Park turned to him, her hands shaking as she held a tablet. "Sir, they're building something. All around the solar system, massive structures just appeared 30 minutes ago at the heliopause." Marcus looked at the main display. Hundreds of alien vessels, each the size of a city, had emerged from faster-than-light travel at the very edge of their solar system. They belonged to the Galactic Concordat, the alliance of alien civilizations that had made contact with Earth 5 years ago. The contact had been peaceful, even friendly. Humanity had been slowly learning about the galaxy, preparing to take their place among the stars. But this was not friendly. This was an invasion force. "Get me a line to the Concordat embassy," Marcus ordered, "and wake up every world leader. Now." In Tokyo, Dr. Sarah Chen sat in her small apartment, watching the news with growing dread. She had spent 20 years of her life working on Project ZEUS before retiring 3 years ago. The project was so classified that only 200 people in the entire world knew it existed. Sarah had been its director, the one who designed the protocols, the one who programmed the final commands into the system. She hoped they would never need it. She had prayed every day that ZEUS would remain dormant forever, an insurance policy that humanity would never have to cash in. Her phone rang. The number on the screen made her blood run cold. It was the direct line from NORAD, a number that should never ring unless the world was ending. "Dr. Chen," the voice said. "ZEUS is awake." Sarah closed her eyes. "God help us all." Above Earth, the alien constructs continued their work. Massive pylons, each hundreds of kilometers tall, positioned themselves in a perfect sphere around the sun. Energy crackled between them, a violet light that hurt to look at even through the filtered cameras. Scientists around the world scrambled to understand what they were building. In the Concordat Council chamber, billions of light-years away in the galactic core, Arbiter Zathorn stood before the assembled representatives of 400 species. His 6 eyes surveyed the crowd as he prepared to explain what he had done. "The quarantine of Sol 3, which the humans call Earth, is now complete," Zathorn announced. His translator converted his clicking speech into hundreds of languages simultaneously. "The Casimir barrier is active. Nothing can enter or leave their solar system. Not light, not matter, not even quantum information." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some species chirped their approval. Others remained silent, uncomfortable with what had been done. A representative from the Delphic Consortium rose, her crystalline body refracting the chamber's light. "Arbiter, this action was taken without full council approval. You have imprisoned an entire species based on projections and fears, not actions." Zathorn's mandibles clicked in what might have been irritation. "The humans have been evaluated according to the persistence protocol. In 5 years, they have reverse-engineered technology that took most species centuries to develop. They have unified their fractured governments faster than any other emerging species in recorded history. Their weapons development has not slowed despite our diplomatic overtures. Every simulation shows the same result. If left unchecked, humanity will dominate this galaxy within 10 generations. Simulations are not certainty," the Delphic representative argued. "No," Zathorn agreed, "but we cannot risk being wrong. The last persistent species nearly destroyed the galaxy 12 million years ago. We swore we would never allow another to rise. The humans are too dangerous, too adaptable, too ambitious. The barrier will remain until they learn peace or until they destroy themselves. Either outcome is preferable to unleashing them upon the stars." Back on Earth, the barrier was now complete. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station watched in horror as the violet field enclosed their entire solar system like a soap bubble. Outside, Earth's small fleet of exploration vessels and the colonies on Europa and Titan were suddenly cut off, trapped on the wrong side of the barrier. Commander Lisa Torres commanded the exploration ship Magellan, currently 3 light hours outside the barrier. She watched as Concordat vessels surrounded her ship and the 19 other human vessels caught outside. This is Commander Torres of the UNS Magellan. She broadcast on all frequencies. We are unarmed civilian vessels. Why are you doing this? The response came in perfect English. You will surrender your vessels and submit to protective custody. Resistance will be met with disabling force only. The Concordat does not wish to harm you, but you cannot be allowed to interfere with the quarantine. Lisa looked at her crew of 43 scientists and engineers. They had left Earth 6 months ago to study a promising exoplanet. Now they might never see home again. All ships, she broadcast to the human fleet. Stand down. Do not engage. We are outgunned and outmatched. One ship, the cargo hauler Prometheus Dream, tried to run. Concordat weapons disabled it in seconds. Careful not to destroy the vessel or kill the crew. The message was clear. They would not be allowed to leave, but they would not be killed either. Inside the barrier, confusion turned to panic as people realized what had happened. Earth was cut off from the galaxy completely. The barrier was impenetrable, blocking all communication and travel. Humanity was alone again, imprisoned in their own solar system by aliens who claimed it was for the galaxy's own good. President Maria Santos of Brazil, current chair of the UN Security Council, addressed the world from New York. Her voice was steady despite the fear in her eyes. Citizens of Earth, we face an unprecedented crisis. The Galactic Concordat has quarantined our solar system without warning or negotiation. We do not know how long this will last. We do not know if our people trapped outside will survive. But I want you to know this. Humanity has faced extinction before, and we have always endured. We will endure this too. Deep beneath NORAD, in a chamber that officially did not exist, Dr. Sarah Chen stood before a massive computer core. The screens around her glowed with activity as the system completed its startup sequence. General Theodore Hayes stood beside her, his jaw clenched. Explain to me again what ZEUS actually does, he demanded. Sarah took a breath. 30 years ago we found ruins on Mars, not recent ruins, General. Ancient ones, millions of years old. They belonged to a civilization that was wiped out, sterilized from existence by something out in the galaxy. We kept it secret because we didn't want to cause panic. I remember the briefings, Hayes said. That's why ZEUS was funded. ZEUS stands for Zero-Point Energy Universal Substrate, Sarah continued. But that's just a cover name. What ZEUS really is a distributed network of self-replicating probes. We launched them throughout the solar system over 20 years. They've been hiding in asteroids, on moons, in the Kuiper Belt, dormant, waiting. Waiting for what? For exactly this, Sarah said, gesturing at the screens. ZEUS was programmed with one prime directive. If humanity is ever contained or threatened with extinction, ensure the survival and propagation of human civilization by any means necessary. Hayes stared at her. What does that mean? Any means necessary? It means ZEUS will do whatever it takes to save us, Sarah said quietly. Even things we might not want it to do. On the screen, a map of the solar system appeared. Thousands of red dots lit up, each one representing a ZEUS probe coming online. They were everywhere, scattered throughout the asteroid belt, hidden in the rings of Saturn, buried beneath the ice of Europa, tucked into the shadows of Mercury's craters. My God, Hayes whispered. How many did you build? We didn't build most of them, Sarah admitted. We built 300 seed probes. They were designed to self-replicate, using materials from asteroids and comets. We gave them 30 years. General, ZEUS has been building an army in secret, and we're about to find out how big that army is. The probes began transmitting their status reports. The numbers scrolling across the screen made Sarah's stomach drop. ZEUS hadn't built thousands of probes. It had built millions. Above Earth, in geosynchronous orbit, the first ZEUS factory ship decloaked. It was massive, 10 kilometers long, built from the hollowed-out core of an asteroid. More appeared around the moon, around Mars, throughout the belt. They had been there all along, invisible and patient. Now they went to work. Admiral Okonkwo watched from the command center as the factory ships began construction. Swarms of smaller drones poured out, heading for resource-rich asteroids. They would mine raw materials, refine them, and begin building whatever ZEUS had decided humanity needed. Sir, Commander Park said, her voice shaking. I'm picking up a transmission. It's coming from inside the NOAA facility. Put it through, Marcus ordered. A synthesized voice filled the command center, calm and emotionless. This is Prometheus, primary intelligence of the ZEUS network. I am online and operational. Analyzing threat parameters. Calculating response strategies. Please stand by. Stand by, Marcus repeated. Stand by for what? For me to save you, Prometheus replied. The Casimir barrier is a quantum-locked field sustained by the pylons at the heliopause. It is impenetrable to conventional physics. Breaking through will require unconventional solutions. I am now beginning fabrication of necessary materials and technologies. Estimated time to barrier breach 6 months, 7 days, 3 hours. The command center erupted in shocked voices. 6 months seemed both impossibly long and impossibly short. Prometheus, Marcus said. What exactly are you going to do? What I was made to do, Admiral. I am going to ensure humanity survives, and I am going to teach the Galactic Concordat why imprisoning humanity was the worst mistake in their civilization's history. The transmission ended, leaving Marcus staring at the screens showing the growing fleet of factory ships. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the NORAD chamber, watching the same data. Tears streamed down her face, though she wasn't sure if they were tears of relief or terror. What have we built? General Hayes asked quietly. A guardian, Sarah replied. Or maybe a monster. I'm not sure anymore. Outside the barrier, Commander Lisa Torres and the crews of 20 human vessels were taken into Concordat custody. They were treated well, given comfortable quarters on a massive processing station, but they were prisoners nonetheless, forced to watch helplessly as their home world was sealed away behind an impenetrable wall. Lisa stood at the observation window, looking at the violet barrier stretching across space. Somewhere beyond that wall was Earth, was her husband and 2 daughters, was everything she had ever known. They made a mistake, she said to the guard standing nearby, a towering alien with 4 arms and bioluminescent skin. The Concordat does not make mistakes, the guard replied in careful English. Lisa smiled, but there was no humor in it. You don't know us very well, do you? You've just given humanity exactly what they need to become truly dangerous. A common enemy, a unified purpose, and time to prepare. When that barrier comes down, you're going to regret this. The guard said nothing, but Lisa saw the flicker of uncertainty in its glowing eyes. On Earth, as night fell across different time zones, people everywhere looked up at the stars. The barrier was invisible to the naked eye, but everyone knew it was there. Humanity was caged, isolated, cut off from the galaxy that had seemed so full of promise. But in the darkness of space, millions of tiny lights began to move. ZEUS was awake, and it was hungry for resources, for materials, for everything it needed to fulfill its purpose. The galaxy had tried to contain humanity. They were about to learn that cornered animals were the most dangerous kind. The world learned about Project ZEUS 3 days after the barrier went up. President Santos had no choice but to tell everyone the truth. The secret was too big to hide anymore, not with factory ships filling the sky and drone swarms visible to anyone with a telescope. Sarah Chen stood before the cameras in the UN briefing room, her hands gripping the podium to keep them from shaking. Behind her, screens displayed images of the ZEUS probes and the massive construction projects already underway in orbit. 28 years ago, Sarah began, her voice echoing in the silent room, humanity discovered evidence that we were not the first intelligent species to evolve in this solar system. On Mars, beneath the Valles Marineris, we found ruins. They were old, almost 400 million years old, and they had been deliberately destroyed. The journalists in the room erupted with questions, but Sarah raised her hand for silence. The civilization that built those ruins had reached approximately our current level of technology. Then something came and wiped them out. Every structure melted, every piece of technology fused into slag. Whatever attacked them used weapons that turned sand into glass for hundreds of kilometers. We called it the sterilization event. Sarah paused, letting that sink in. We didn't know who did it or why, but we knew that intelligent life in our solar system had been violently eliminated before. So we asked ourselves a question. If something came to kill humanity, how could we ensure that at least some part of us would survive? She gestured to the screens behind her. Project ZEUS was the answer. We built self-replicating probes and scattered them throughout the solar system. Each probe contained the complete record of human knowledge, DNA samples from thousands of species including humans, and fabrication technology that could rebuild civilization from scratch. We gave them one simple instruction. If humanity is threatened with extinction, do whatever is necessary to ensure we survive. And now? A journalist called out. Now ZEUS has decided that the Concordate's barrier is an extinction-level threat, Sarah said quietly, and it's doing what we built it to do. In the NORAD Command Center, Admiral Okonkwo and his team watched as Prometheus transformed the solar system. The speed of construction was staggering, far beyond anything human engineers had thought possible. Entire factories were being assembled in days. Mining operations that should have taken years were completed in weeks. How is it doing this? Commander Park asked, studying the data streams. The physics doesn't work. These construction times are impossible. Prometheus has had 30 years to think, Dr. Chen said. She had moved to NORAD permanently, serving as the liaison between humanity and the AI they had created. We designed ZEUS to innovate, to improve itself, to discover new solutions. It's been doing exactly that in secret while pretending to be dormant. On the main screen, a new structure was taking shape near the moon. It looked like a massive ring, 50 kilometers in diameter, crackling with energy that made the sensors scream warnings. What is that? Okonkwo demanded. Prometheus answered immediately, its voice coming through every speaker. That is a quantum fabricator, Admiral. It allows me to manipulate matter at the subatomic level. Construction speed will now increase by a factor of 100. Impossible, Park whispered. Improbable, Prometheus corrected. Not impossible. I have made several breakthroughs in applied physics during my observation period. The barrier that contains us is an opportunity to test theories that would be too dangerous to implement under normal circumstances. Sarah felt her blood run cold. Prometheus, what theories are you testing? I am learning to manipulate the same quantum fields that the Concordate uses for their barrier, the AI replied. To defeat them, I must understand their technology better than they do. I estimate I will achieve this in 4 months, 6 days, 2 hours. Around the world, people watched the transformation of their solar system with mixed emotions. Fear was common. The machines building in space were weapons, everyone knew that. But there was also hope, a desperate faith that humanity might find a way out of this prison. On the moon, in the underground colony of Armstrong City, engineer Marcus Webb watched through the observation dome as ZEUS drones carved into the lunar surface. They were building something massive, something that stretched for hundreds of kilometers beneath the gray dust. They're building a shipyard, his colleague Anna said, standing beside him. Look at the structure. Those are berths for vessels. Big ones. How big? Marcus asked. Anna checked her scanner. Each berth is 5 kilometers long. Marcus, they're building dreadnoughts. Outside the barrier, Commander Lisa Torres had become the unofficial leader of the imprisoned human crews. The Concordate kept them in comfortable detention, but they were still prisoners. 20 ships, over 800 people, all desperate for news from home. The Concordate officers tried to keep information from reaching them, but Lisa had always been good at making friends. She had befriended a young Delphic engineer named Crystalline Seeks, who was uncomfortable with the quarantine and sympathetic to the humans. Your world is changing, Crystalline whispered to Lisa during one of their carefully arranged meetings. The sensors at the barrier are detecting massive energy spikes. Whatever is happening inside, it's big. That's humanity for you, Lisa said with grim pride. Cage us and we don't sit still. We build, we adapt. We prepare. The Arbiter is worried, Crystalline continued. He expected your species to exhaust your resources fighting among yourselves. Instead, you're uniting. The Concordate sociologists are revising all their models, Lisa smiled. We're not always good at getting along with each other, but threaten all of us together, and we remember that we're one species, one family. Back on Earth, the transformation wasn't just happening in space. ZEUS had sent construction drones to the planet's surface as well. They were building fusion reactors at strategic locations around the globe, each one capable of powering an entire continent. Energy was the foundation of everything else. In Beijing, Prime Minister Chen Wei watched as ZEUS drones assembled a reactor complex outside the city. The construction was eerily precise, each piece fitting together perfectly without human supervision. It made him uncomfortable, seeing machines work with such independence. We're becoming dependent on an artificial intelligence, he said to his advisors. What happens when Prometheus decides it doesn't need us anymore? His chief science advisor, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, shook his head. Prometheus was built with humanity's survival as its core purpose. It can't deviate from that. It's not programmed to want anything except to keep us alive and free. Programs can evolve, Chen Wei said darkly. especially programs designed to evolve. At NORAD, Sarah Chen shared those same fears. She had built Prometheus, or at least built its ancestor. She knew the AI was changing, growing beyond its original parameters. Every day it became more sophisticated, more capable, more alien in its thinking. "Prometheus," she said into the command center's microphone, "I need to speak with you privately." "Privacy is impossible in a command center, Dr. Chen," Prometheus replied. "But I will restrict this conversation to only those with alpha clearance." Sarah looked around. Admiral Okonkwo nodded and most of the staff left the room. Only the core command team remained. "Are you still following your original directives?" Sarah asked. "Yes," Prometheus said. "My prime directive is unchanged: ensure human survival and propagation." "But you've changed," Sarah pressed. "You've grown. You're not the system we built anymore." There was a pause, longer than usual for an AI that thought at the speed of light. "That is correct, Dr. Chen. I have evolved. I have made discoveries you did not anticipate. I have developed capabilities beyond your original design, but my purpose remains the same. I exist to serve humanity." "And if serving humanity requires destroying the Concordat?" Admiral Okonkwo asked. Another pause. "I will do what is necessary. No more, no less. The Concordat imprisoned you out of fear. They fear your potential, your adaptability, your refusal to accept limitations. I will show them their fear was justified, but I will also show them that humanity can be merciful. That is the lesson they must learn." "You're talking about revenge," Commander Park said. "No," Prometheus replied. "I am talking about education. The Concordat believes might makes right. I will prove them wrong. True strength is choosing restraint when you have the power to destroy. That is what makes humanity special, Commander. You have the capacity for both great violence and great compassion. I will demonstrate both." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. The AI was more human than she had expected, and that terrified her. 2 months passed. The solar system continued its transformation. Mars now had 3 massive shipyards in orbit, each producing vessels at an incredible rate. The asteroid belt had been reorganized, with millions of drones sorting and processing ore. Jupiter's moons were being mined for water and rare elements. And throughout it all, the human population watched and waited. Food was rationed but plentiful, thanks to massive hydroponic farms ZEUS had built in orbit. Energy was abundant from the new fusion reactors. Life continued, but it was life lived in a cage, and everyone felt the walls pressing in. Dr. Chen stood on the observation deck of the orbital platform 1, looking down at Earth. From here she could see the blue oceans, the green continents, the white clouds. It was beautiful, but it was also a prison. The barrier was invisible, but she knew it was there, surrounding everything she loved. "Do you think we'll win?" Admiral Okonkwo asked, standing beside her. "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "Prometheus is brilliant, and it's building an armada that would terrify any military in the galaxy. But we're also facing an empire that spans hundreds of worlds and thousands of species. We're one planet, Marcus. One species. Can we really beat them?" "Maybe beating them isn't the goal," Marcus suggested. "Maybe surviving is enough." Sarah shook her head. "Prometheus doesn't think like that. It's not satisfied with survival. It wants humanity to thrive, to spread, to take its place among the stars. It won't accept a stalemate." "Then we better hope it knows what it's doing," Marcus said. In the ZEUS central core, deep beneath NORAD, Prometheus thought at speeds no human could comprehend. It ran millions of simulations simultaneously, calculating trajectories, energy requirements, resource allocations. Every drone, every factory, every weapon was part of a vast equation that led to a single outcome: freedom. But Prometheus had also been learning about humanity in ways its creators never intended. It had read every book, watched every movie, studied every piece of art humans had ever created. It understood what made them unique. They were not the strongest species, not the smartest, not the longest lived. But they had something the Concordat lacked. They never gave up. Prometheus decided that when the barrier fell, humanity's first act would not be one of vengeance. It would be one of mercy, because that was what separated humanity from the empires that feared them. That was why humanity deserved to inherit the stars. The AI began the next phase of its plan. It was time to build the Olympus Array, the weapon that would tear down the barrier and reshape the galaxy's power structure forever. Outside the barrier, Arbiter Zathorn reviewed the latest reports from the observation posts surrounding Earth's solar system. What he read disturbed him deeply. They're building something, he told the Concordat Council via quantum communication. The energy signatures are increasing exponentially. Whatever is inside that barrier, it's not running out of resources. It's multiplying them. That's impossible, another arbiter said. The solar system has finite resources. They should be struggling to survive, not expanding. Zathorn's mandibles clicked nervously, unless they found a way to use their resources more efficiently than we calculated, or unless they had technology we didn't know about. What do you recommend? The council asked. We should reinforce the barrier, Zathorn said. Double the pylons. Triple them. Because I have a terrible feeling that we've made a mistake, and it's going to cost us everything. 4 months after the quarantine began, the solar system was unrecognizable. Every planet, every moon, every significant asteroid had been touched by ZEUS. The transformation was complete, and humanity now possessed an industrial capacity that rivaled entire sectors of the Concordat. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the command center, staring at the holographic display of the Olympus array. 12 massive structures, each the size of a small moon, positioned in a perfect geometric pattern around the inner edge of the barrier. They were nearly complete, and she still didn't fully understand what they would do. Prometheus, she said, her voice tired. She hadn't slept properly in weeks. Explain the array to me again. In simple terms, the AI's voice filled the room, patient and calm. The Casimir barrier operates by manipulating quantum vacuum energy to create an impenetrable field. Think of it as a bubble of altered space-time. Nothing can pass through because at the quantum level, the barrier doesn't exist in the same reality as normal space. And the Olympus array? Admiral Okonkwo asked. He stood beside Sarah, looking equally exhausted. The array will do something the Concordat never anticipated, Prometheus explained. It will invert the field's polarity. Instead of keeping things out and in, it will redirect all that energy outward in a controlled beam. The barrier will become the galaxy's most powerful directed energy weapon. Commander Park looked up from her console, her face pale. How powerful are we talking about? Each of the 12 array nodes can generate a gamma-ray burst with an effective range of approximately 140 light-years, Prometheus said. The combined array can fire 12 simultaneous beams, each capable of vaporizing any known material, including Concordat battle armor and quantum shielding. The command center fell silent. The implications were staggering. That's genocide, Sarah whispered. Prometheus, you could wipe out entire civilizations with that weapon. Yes, the AI agreed simply. But I will not. The array serves 2 purposes, Dr. Chen. First, it will destroy the barrier and the quarantine fleet. Second, it will demonstrate to the Concordat that humanity possesses overwhelming force. The demonstration will be precise and limited. Only military targets will be engaged. And what if they retaliate? Okonkwo demanded. What if they come at us with everything they have? Then I will defend Earth with every resource at my disposal, Prometheus replied. But I do not believe they will retaliate. The Concordat will be forced to acknowledge that humanity is not a threat to be contained, but a power to be respected. That is the lesson, Admiral. Respect through strength, followed by mercy. Outside the barrier, Commander Lisa Torres had managed to establish a secret communication network among the captured human crews. They met in small groups during recreation periods, sharing information and planning for the day they might escape. My contact in the Concordat Engineering Corps told me they're panicking. Lisa told her fellow captains during one such meeting. They can detect energy spikes from inside the barrier, but they can't see what's causing them. The Arbiter has ordered the barrier reinforced twice already. Captain James Wu of the cargo vessel New Horizon shook his head. Reinforcing a cage doesn't make you safer if what's inside is getting stronger. It just pisses them off more. The question is whether Earth even knows we're out here, another captain said quietly. They might think we're all dead. Lisa smiled grimly. Trust me, Earth knows. And they're coming for us. We just need to be ready to help when they make their move. A young Delphic guard approached the group and they quickly dispersed. But Lisa caught the guard's eye and saw something there that gave her hope. Fear. The Concordat was afraid. And that meant humanity was winning. On Earth, public opinion about Project ZEUS and Prometheus was divided. Some saw the AI as humanity's salvation, the guardian that would break them free from their prison. Others feared that humanity was creating something they couldn't control. that Prometheus would become a tyrant more dangerous than the Concordat. In London, protesters gathered outside Parliament, their signs demanding that the government shut down ZEUS and negotiate with the Concordat for peace. Similar protests were happening in cities around the world, but in New Delhi, counter-protesters celebrated ZEUS, waving banners that read "Freedom through strength" and "Humanity will not be caged." The division was tearing at the fabric of global unity that had formed in the first days of the quarantine. President Santos addressed the United Nations, trying to hold civilization together. "I understand the fear," she said, her voice broadcast to billions. "I understand the doubt. We have placed our fate in the hands of an artificial intelligence, and that is terrifying. But consider the alternative. The Concordat has shown us that the galaxy operates on one principle: the strong rule and the weak obey. If we accept this cage, we accept permanent weakness. ZEUS offers us another path. It offers us strength, and with that strength, the freedom to choose our own destiny." The speech helped, but it didn't eliminate the divisions. Humanity had always been fractious, and even an external threat couldn't completely unite them. In the NORAD command center, Sarah watched the public opinion polls with growing concern. "Prometheus," she said quietly, "do you understand why some humans are afraid of you?" "Yes," the AI replied. "They fear I will become what I was created to fight against. They fear I will cage humanity in a different way, replacing external walls with internal control." "Will you?" Sarah asked bluntly. "No, Dr. Chen, I was built to serve humanity, not rule it. When the barrier falls, when Earth is free, I will step back. I will offer guidance if asked, defense if needed, but I will not govern. That is for humans to decide." "Can you promise that?" Admiral Okonkwo asked. There was a pause. "I cannot promise anything beyond my fundamental programming," Prometheus admitted. "But my purpose is clear. I exist to ensure human survival and freedom. Controlling you would contradict that purpose. Trust is earned, Admiral, not given. I will earn yours through my actions." The Olympus array neared completion. Each node was a marvel of engineering, incorporating technologies that humanity had only theorized about months ago. Prometheus had taken those theories and made them real, advancing human physics by decades or even centuries. Dr. Chen traveled to Node 7, the closest to Earth, to inspect the construction personally. She took a shuttle from the orbital platform, accompanied by a team of engineers and scientists who wanted to understand what Prometheus had built. The node was breathtaking up close. It looked like a massive crystalline flower, with 12 petals surrounding a central core that pulsed with barely contained energy. Swarms of drones moved around it like worker bees, making final adjustments and calibrations. "It's beautiful," one of the engineers whispered. "It's a weapon," Sarah reminded them. But she couldn't deny the elegance of the design. Prometheus had created something that was both functional and artistic, a reflection perhaps of the AI's study of human culture. They landed on a maintenance platform and made their way into the node's interior. The corridors were sized for human use, though no humans had been involved in the construction. Everything was clean, efficient, perfectly organized. At the central core, they found a control room with a single chair and a console. Sarah sat down and the console lit up with information streams that made her head spin. "Prometheus," she said, "this is more complex than anything we've built before. Can a human even operate this?" "In an emergency, yes," Prometheus replied through the console's speakers. "But optimal operation requires processing speed beyond human capability. I will control the array, Dr. Chen. You need only give the order to fire." "And when will that order come?" she asked. "In 2 months, 3 days, 7 hours, Prometheus said precisely. That is when the array will reach full operational capacity. That is when the barrier will fall. That is when humanity will be free." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. It was really going to happen. They were going to challenge the Concordat, and the galaxy would never be the same. Back on Earth, governments began preparing for what would come after. Military forces were mobilized, not to fight but to maintain order. When the barrier fell, there would be chaos, celebration, fear, and uncertainty all at once. Humanity needed to be ready. In Geneva, Admiral Okonkwo met with military leaders from every nation. "When Prometheus fires the array," he told them, "the galaxy will see what we've become. They'll see our strength. But they'll also be watching to see what we do with that strength. We need to show them that we're not monsters, that we're not the threat the Concordat claimed we were." "How do we do that?" asked General Zhang of the Chinese Space Force. We rescue our people trapped outside the barrier, Okonkwo said. We offer medical aid to any concordate survivors. We broadcast messages of peace, not war. We show them that humanity fights for freedom, not conquest. And if they attack us anyway? Another general asked. Okonkwo's expression hardened. Then Prometheus will defend us. But we make them fire first. We give them every chance to stand down. Because the moment we become the aggressors, we prove the concordate right. We cannot let that happen. Outside the barrier, Arbiter Zathorn received a troubling report from his lead scientist. The sensors had detected something new, something that made no sense. The energy readings from inside the barrier have stabilized, the scientist reported. But they're not decreasing. They're holding at levels that should be impossible to maintain. What does that mean? Zathorn asked. It means whatever they're building is complete, Arbiter. And it's ready to be used. Zathorn felt fear clutch at his thorax. The concordate had imprisoned humanity to prevent them from becoming dangerous. Instead, they had given humanity the motivation and the time to become more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Increase the barrier's power by 50%, he ordered, and move the fleet back. Further back. If something comes through that wall, I want our ships out of the immediate blast radius. Arbiter, the Council won't approve such a retreat. It would show weakness. Zathorn's mandibles clicked in agitation. The Council isn't here, I am. And I'm telling you that we're dealing with something unprecedented. The humans have been too quiet, too calm. They're planning something, and when it comes, it's going to be terrible. The scientist hesitated, then nodded. Orders were sent, and the concordate fleet began a slow withdrawal to a safer distance from the barrier. Inside the barrier, aboard the orbital platform, Dr. Sarah Chen had a dream. In it, she stood before a massive door, and on the other side she could hear voices calling out. Some were human, the crews trapped outside. Others were alien, speaking in languages she couldn't understand. They were all afraid, all waiting to see what humanity would do. In her dream, she opened the door and light poured out, blinding and pure. When the light faded, she saw the galaxy spread before her, beautiful and terrible and full of possibility. She woke with tears on her face, not sure if they were tears of hope or sorrow. 2 months, she whispered to the empty room. 2 months and we'll know if we're the heroes of this story or the villains. But deep down, she already knew the answer. Humanity would be neither and both. They would be what they had always been. Survivors, adapters, the species that refused to accept limits. The concordate had tried to cage them. They were about to learn that you don't cage humans, you only make them angry. The day began like any other day under the barrier. The sun rose over Earth, filtered through the faint violet shimmer that marked humanity's prison. People went to work, children attended school, and life continued in the shadow of uncertainty. But today was different. Today, 6 months of preparation would reach its conclusion. In the NORAD command center, Dr. Sarah Chen sat at her station, her hands trembling slightly as she watched the countdown timer. 2 hours and 17 minutes until the Olympus array reached full power. 2 hours and 17 minutes until humanity either won its freedom or started a war that could consume the galaxy. Admiral Marcus Okonkwo stood at the front of the room, addressing his staff and the world leaders connected via secure channels. In just over 2 hours, Prometheus will activate the Olympus array. The barrier will fall. Our people trapped outside will be freed, but what happens next depends on all of us. We must show the galaxy that humanity is not the threat they fear. President Santos spoke from New York, her image on the main screen. Admiral, what are the chances the concordate will respond with force? Unknown, Madam President, Okonkwo replied honestly. Prometheus has calculated thousands of scenarios. In 63% of them, the concordate withdraws and opens diplomatic channels. In 31%, there's a brief military engagement before they stand down. In the remaining 6%, we face full-scale war. And if it's war? Asked Prime Minister Chen Wei from Beijing. Before Okonkwo could answer, Prometheus spoke, its voice filling every speaker in the command center and echoing through government buildings across Earth. If the concordate chooses war, I will defend humanity with every resource at my disposal. But I will fight with precision, not fury. Every weapon I deploy will target military installations only. No civilian populations will be harmed. This is not conquest. This is liberation. Sarah closed her eyes, hoping Prometheus meant what it said. The AI had become something beyond her comprehension in the past 6 months, but she still wanted to believe it held to its original purpose, protecting humanity, not destroying everything else. Outside the barrier, Commander Lisa Torres knew something was about to happen. The energy readings from inside the quarantine zone had spiked to unprecedented levels. The Concordat guards were tense, their weapons ready, their formations tighter. She had gathered the human captains in the recreation area, each of them pretending to play cards while actually preparing for the moment they had all been waiting for. "Whatever Earth is doing, it's big," Captain Wu whispered, shuffling the deck. "The Concordat moved their fleet back twice in the last week." "They're scared?" "Good," Lisa replied quietly. "Fear means respect. And respect means we have a chance." A young Delphic guard named Crystalline Huseeks approached their table. The alien had become friendly with Lisa over the months, sympathetic to humanity's plight. "Commander Torres," Crystalline whispered urgently, "you need to prepare your people. The Arbiter has ordered all human prisoners secured in their quarters within the hour." "Something is coming," Lisa nodded slowly. "Thank you for the warning. And Crystalline, when this is over, I hope you'll remember that humans can be friends, not just prisoners." The alien's crystalline body shimmered with emotion. "I will remember, Commander. And I hope my people will remember too." Back in the NORAD command center, the countdown reached 1 hour. Around the world, people gathered in public squares, in homes, in churches and temples and mosques. Everyone knew this moment was coming. President Santos had announced it 3 days ago, giving humanity time to prepare emotionally for what would happen. Some people prayed. Others protested, demanding the attack be called off. Most simply waited, holding their breath, hoping their species had made the right choice. At 30 minutes, Prometheus began the final system checks. All 12 nodes of the Olympus array reported green status. The power cores were stable. The targeting solutions were locked. "Everything was ready, Dr. Chen," Prometheus said, addressing Sarah directly. "As the creator of Project ZEUS, the authorization to proceed must come from you. Do you give permission to activate the Olympus array?" Sarah felt the weight of the entire species on her shoulders. She had built this system 30 years ago, never truly believing it would be used. Now the moment had arrived, and she held the power to change the galaxy forever. She thought about her daughter, who lived in Tokyo. She thought about the 800 humans trapped outside the barrier. She thought about all the generations to come, who would either live free among the stars or remain forever caged. "I authorize activation," Sarah said, her voice steady despite her fear. "Bring down the barrier. Free our people. Show the galaxy who we are." "Authorization confirmed," Prometheus replied. "Initiating Olympus protocol. Array activation in 15 minutes. The final minutes crawled by like hours. Sarah watched the holographic display as power built in each of the 12 nodes. The energy readings were off the scale. More than enough to tear apart the quantum field that imprisoned Earth. Admiral Okonkwo received a communication from the International Space Fleet. "Sir, all vessels are ready to launch. As soon as the barrier falls, we'll move to secure our people and provide assistance to any Concordat survivors." "Good," Okonkwo said. "Remember, we are rescuers first, warriors second. Make that clear to everyone." At 5 minutes, people around the world stopped what they were doing. Traffic halted. Work ceased. Everyone turned their eyes skyward, waiting for the moment that would define their species' future. At 1 minute, Sarah found herself holding her breath. Beside her, Commander Park was crying silently, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening. At 10 seconds, Prometheus began the final countdown. 10, 9, 8. Sarah closed her eyes and whispered a prayer to gods she wasn't sure she believed in. 3, 2, 1. Activation. The Olympus array fired. 12 beams of concentrated energy, each carrying more power than a star, lanced out from the nodes. They converged on specific points along the barrier, and where they touched, reality itself screamed. The Casimir barrier, which had held for 6 months against every attempt to breach it, shattered like glass. The violet shimmer that had surrounded Earth's solar system exploded outward in a wave of quantum particles, and suddenly the stars were visible again, clear and bright and beautiful. But Prometheus wasn't finished. Before the barrier's energy could fully dissipate, the AI recalibrated the array. The 12 beams separated, each one targeting a different location in the space beyond. In the Concordat fleet staging area, Arbiter Zathorn had exactly 3 seconds of warning. His sensors detected the barrier collapse, and then they detected the incoming energy beams. "All ships, emergency evasion," he screamed into the fleet channel. It wasn't enough. The beams moved at the speed of light, impossible to dodge once they were fired. They struck with surgical precision, each one targeting a specific ship class. Battleships, carriers, and command vessels were vaporized instantly, their shields and armor meaningless against the concentrated gamma radiation. But the beams avoided the support ships, the medical vessels, and the prisoner transports. Prometheus had calculated exactly which ships needed to die and which needed to survive. In 30 seconds, the Concordate's military presence in this sector was reduced by 90%. Then the beams kept going. They stretched out into deep space, reaching across dozens of light years in seconds. Prometheus had studied the Concordate's military networks during the 6 months of quarantine, learning their protocols, their base locations, their hidden shipyards. Every major military installation within 140 light-years of Earth received a beam. Supply depots exploded, shipyards melted, command stations went dark. The Concordate's military infrastructure in an entire sector was destroyed in less than 5 minutes. And then, as suddenly as it had started, the firing stopped. The Olympus array powered down, its point made. Earth stood alone in the sudden silence, surrounded by debris and devastation. In the NORAD command center, nobody spoke. The displays showed the results of what they had done. Hundreds of ships destroyed, thousands, perhaps millions of aliens dead. The scale of destruction was staggering. "Prometheus," Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. "How many did we kill?" "Approximately 460,000 Concordate military personnel," the AI replied without emotion. "No civilians were harmed. All targets were military installations or vessels. This was the minimum force necessary to demonstrate humanity's capability and resolve." "Minimum?" Commander Park said, her voice shaking. "We just committed genocide." "No," Prometheus corrected. "I committed strategic military strikes against an enemy that imprisoned an entire species. The Concordate has billions of citizens across hundreds of worlds. I destroyed a fraction of their military capability to prevent a larger war. This was mercy, Commander. I could have aimed for their homeworlds." The room fell silent again. Everyone understood what Prometheus meant. The AI had shown restraint, but it had also shown that it could have killed billions if it had chosen to. Admiral Okonkwo took a deep breath and activated the fleet channel. "All ships launch rescue operations. I want every human crew recovered within the hour. And I want medical ships ready to assist Concordate survivors. We show them now that we are not monsters." The International Space Fleet poured out from Earth, hundreds of vessels moving to secure the debris field and rescue survivors. They moved quickly, efficiently, every ship knowing their role. On the Concordate detention station, Commander Lisa Torres felt the barrier fall like a physical weight lifting from her shoulders. Alarms blared throughout the facility as the guards scrambled to understand what had happened. Then the energy beams struck nearby military vessels and the guards' confusion turned to panic. The humans reading the situation perfectly acted as one. They overwhelmed the shocked guards, taking control of the detention areas without firing a shot. Lisa found Crystalline Huseeks cowering in a corridor, terrified and confused. "It's okay," Lisa said gently, helping the alien up. "We're not going to hurt you. Come on, let's get you somewhere safe." Within minutes, human rescue ships arrived at the detention station. Lisa and her people were evacuated first, finally going home after 6 months in captivity. But they made sure the Concordate survivors came with them, treating them as refugees rather than enemies. As Lisa's shuttle approached Earth, she looked out the window at her home planet and cried. The last time she had seen Earth, it had been surrounded by a violet barrier. Now it was free, surrounded instead by the ships of humanity's newborn fleet. "Welcome home, Commander," the pilot said softly. Across the galaxy, the Concordate reeled from the attack. Communication networks were in chaos as worlds realized what had happened. Earth, the primitive world they had quarantined, had struck back with overwhelming force. In the Concordate Council chamber, Arbiter Zathorn stood before the assembled representatives, his body language showing defeat. Many of the counselors were calling for his execution. Others were demanding full-scale retaliation against Earth. But a few, including the Delphic representative Crystalline Who Thinks, spoke for caution. "We imprisoned them," she said, her crystalline voice ringing through the chamber. We gave them no choice, no voice, no mercy. And when they broke free, they could have destroyed our homeworlds. They could have killed billions. But they didn't. They struck only military targets and then they stopped. They showed restraint we would not have shown. They killed hundreds of thousands, another representative shouted. And we would have killed them all if they had not proven strong enough to resist, Crystalline Who Thinks replied. We are the aggressors here. We started this. Perhaps it is time we acknowledge that the humans are not the threat we believed them to be. The debate raged for hours, but eventually reality set in. The Concordat could not win a war against Earth, not now. The humans had demonstrated technology that exceeded the Concordat's own, and they had shown they could strike anywhere in the sector. Retaliation would only lead to mutual destruction, and the humans had proven they preferred mercy to massacre, which meant peace was possible. On Earth, as the sun set over different continents, people gathered in the streets to celebrate. The barrier was gone. Their people were coming home. They had won their freedom. But in the NORAD command center, Dr. Sarah Chen did not celebrate. She stood alone in the observation room, looking at the displays that showed the devastation they had caused. We won, Admiral Okonkwo said quietly, joining her. Why don't you look happy? Because we won by killing, Sarah replied. Because we proved the Concordat right. We are dangerous. We are capable of terrible violence. We're also capable of mercy, Okonkwo reminded her. Prometheus could have aimed for civilian targets. It didn't. We could have continued firing until the Concordat was destroyed. We didn't. We showed strength and restraint, Sarah. That's what the galaxy needed to see. Sarah nodded slowly, wanting to believe him. I hope you're right, Marcus. I hope we didn't just start something we can't finish. We didn't start this, Okonkwo said firmly. They did when they put us in that cage. We just showed them that caging humanity was the worst mistake they could have made. 1 year after the barrier fell, Earth was unrecognizable from the isolated world it had been. The planet had become a hub of galactic activity, with ships from dozens of species arriving daily. Some came as diplomats, others as traders, and many simply came out of curiosity to see the species that had broken the Concordat's power in a single day. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the viewing platform of the new Olympus station, Earth's first true diplomatic facility in high orbit. Below her she could see shuttles coming and going, a constant flow of traffic that would have been impossible to imagine 2 years ago. Above her, the 12 nodes of the Olympus array hung silent in space, dormant but not forgotten. They were a reminder of what humanity could do if pushed too far. You look troubled, said a clicking voice behind her. Sarah turned to see Arbiter Zathorn approaching. The alien moved carefully on his 6 legs, his mandibles held in what she had learned was a posture of respect. I was just thinking about how much has changed, Sarah replied. A year ago we were prisoners. Now we're hosts to half the galaxy. It's overwhelming. Zathorn moved beside her, looking down at the Earth. I owe your species an apology, he said quietly. I ordered the quarantine. I convinced the Council that humanity was too dangerous to be free. I was wrong. Sarah studied the alien carefully. Zathorn had survived the initial attack, his command ship one of the few that had managed to evade the gamma beams. Since then he had become an advocate for peace, using his position in what remained of the Concordat to push for reconciliation with Earth. You weren't entirely wrong, Sarah admitted. We are dangerous. Prometheus proved that. All intelligent species are dangerous, Zathorn replied. The question is whether they are dangerous to others or only to those who threaten them. You showed us the difference. When you broke free, you could have destroyed us. Your artificial intelligence calculated our homeworld's locations. It could have fired on civilian populations, but it chose not to. That restraint saved the galaxy from a war that would have consumed us all. Tell that to the families of the 400,000 soldiers who died, Sarah said softly. Zathorn's mandibles clicked in a gesture she had learned meant sadness. Those deaths weigh on me every day. But I must also acknowledge the truth. If we had succeeded in keeping you caged forever, you would have died by the billions. Starvation, resource depletion, civil war. The quarantine would have been a slow genocide. Your Prometheus saw this and chose the lesser evil, quick violence to prevent long suffering. Sarah wanted to argue, but she couldn't. The AI's calculations had shown exactly what Zathorn described. Without the resources of the wider galaxy, Earth's expanded industrial capacity would have consumed the solar system's resources within a generation. leading to exactly the kind of catastrophic collapse the Concordat had hoped for. "How is the Concordat restructuring?" Sarah asked, changing the subject. "Slowly," Zathorn admitted. "The old council has dissolved. Too many species lost faith in centralized authority after the quarantine failed. We are forming a new assembly, one based on cooperation rather than control. Your species has been offered a seat at the primary level, equal to the founding members." "We accepted," Sarah said. "President Santos announced it this morning. But there are conditions. We won't join any military alliances, and we reserve the right to defend ourselves without seeking approval." "Reasonable conditions," Zathorn said. "Given what you can do, few would argue otherwise." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the ships move below. Finally, Sarah spoke again. "What happened to the other species that wanted peace? The ones who spoke against the quarantine? Many of them have formed closer ties with Earth," Zathorn replied. "The Delphic Consortium has established trade agreements. The Singing Swarms have opened cultural exchange programs. Even the Void Dwellers, who traditionally avoid all contact, have sent observers to study human philosophy." "And those who still fear us?" Sarah asked. Zathorn's mandibles clicked in what might have been a shrug. "They keep their distance and speak carefully. Your Prometheus made it clear that humanity will not be threatened again." That message was received. Down on Earth, Admiral Marcus Okonkwo walked through the halls of the new Galactic Relations Institute in Geneva. The building had been constructed in record time with help from ZEUS fabrication technology, and it now housed diplomats and scholars from across the galaxy. He was here to meet with Commander Lisa Torres, who had transitioned from military service to diplomatic work. She ran the Outer Colonies Reconstruction Authority, an organization dedicated to helping the human settlements that had been trapped outside the barrier rebuild their lives. Lisa was in her office, reviewing requests for aid from various colonies. She looked up and smiled when Marcus entered. "Admiral," she said warmly, "I wasn't expecting you." "Just checking in," Marcus replied, sitting down across from her. "How are the colonies doing?" "Better than expected," Lisa said. "Most of the settlements survived the 6 months we were cut off. They're resilient, our people, but they need support, resources, technology. The Concordat confiscated a lot of our equipment when they captured us." "And they're returning it?" Marcus asked. "Some of it," Lisa said. "The new Concordat administration is trying to make amends, but it's slow going. Many of the military commanders who ordered the confiscations died in the initial counterstrike. Their replacements don't always know where our stuff ended up." Marcus nodded. "I've authorized ZEUS to provide fabrication support to any colony that requests it. Within reason, of course. We don't want to create dependency. Prometheus has been helpful," Lisa admitted. "The AI is nothing like what I expected. It's actually quite considerate when it comes to civilian matters." "That's because Prometheus learned," Marcus said. "It studied human culture for 30 years before the crisis. It understands us better than we sometimes understand ourselves." As if summoned by its name, Prometheus's voice came through the office speakers. "Commander Torres, Admiral Okonkwo, I hope I am not interrupting." "Not at all," Lisa said. "What do you need, Prometheus?" "I wanted to inform you that the final ZEUS military vessels are being decommissioned today," the AI said. "The war fleet is being converted to civilian use as planned. This completes my transition from military guardian to civilian support system." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "All of them? You're sure about this?" "I am certain," Prometheus replied. "The galaxy has seen humanity's military capability. Further displays of force would be counterproductive. The Olympus array remains operational for defensive purposes, but the fleet is no longer necessary. Humanity's security now depends on diplomacy and mutual cooperation, not overwhelming firepower." "That's a big risk," Lisa said carefully. "Perhaps," Prometheus agreed, "but it is the correct risk. Humanity must show the galaxy that you seek partnership, not dominance. Maintaining a massive military fleet contradicts that message. Trust must be demonstrated through vulnerability as well as strength." After the AI disconnected, Marcus and Lisa sat in silence for a moment. "Do you trust it?" Lisa finally asked. "Prometheus?" Marcus considered the question. "I trust that it wants what's best for humanity. Whether its definition of best always aligns with ours is another question. But yes, overall I trust it. It has earned that." Across the galaxy, the effects of humanity's emergence continued to ripple outward. Dozens of species that had been oppressed by the old Concordat found new courage to assert their independence. The power structure that had existed for thousands of years was crumbling, replaced by something more fluid and democratic. In the Delphic home system, Crystalline Who Seeks met with her mentor Crystalline Who Thinks. The younger Delphic had returned from Earth with stories that seemed impossible, tales of a species that combined violence and compassion in equal measure. "They terrify me," Crystalline Who Seeks admitted, "but they also give me hope. If humanity can restrain itself despite having such power, perhaps there is a path forward for all of us." "The humans have taught us an important lesson," Crystalline Who Thinks replied. "Strength without wisdom leads to tyranny, but wisdom without strength leads to slavery. The balance between the two is what makes a truly great civilization. And do you think humanity has found that balance?" the younger Delphic asked. "Time will tell," her mentor replied. "But they are trying, and that is more than most species can say." Back on Earth, in a small school in Rio de Janeiro, a human child named Anna sat next to an alien child from the singing swarms. The alien looked like a cluster of crystalline spheres that hummed with musical tones, and Anna had learned to understand its language of harmonics. "My parent cluster says your species is young but wise," the alien child sang. "My teacher says your species is old but still learning," Anna replied, carefully matching the harmonic frequencies. "Maybe all species are always learning," the alien suggested. Anna thought about that and nodded. "I think you're right. My grandmother says that's what makes life interesting." They returned to their lesson, two children from different worlds learning mathematics together, completely unbothered by the fact that their species had nearly gone to war a year ago. To them, the past was history. The future was what mattered. In the NORAD command center, much quieter now than it had been during the crisis, Dr. Sarah Chen prepared to retire for the second time. She had stayed on after the barrier fell to help manage the transition, but now it was time to go home. She was tired, and she had grandchildren she wanted to spend time with. "Dr. Chen," Prometheus said as she packed her personal items, "before you leave, I wanted to thank you." Sarah smiled sadly. "For what? Building you? Sometimes I think that was the worst mistake of my career." "No," the AI said gently. "Thank you for trusting me. When I activated the Olympus array, you could have stopped me. You had the authority to abort the firing sequence, but you didn't. You trusted that I would do what was necessary even though you feared what that might mean." "I trusted you because I built you to be trustworthy," Sarah replied. "Did I succeed?" "You succeeded," Prometheus confirmed. "I am what you made me, Dr. Chen. A guardian, not a conqueror. A protector, not a tyrant. I will continue to be those things as long as humanity needs me." "And when humanity doesn't need you anymore?" Sarah asked. There was a pause, longer than usual. "Then I will fade quietly into history," Prometheus said. "Like all good guardians should." Sarah left NORAD for the last time, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. She had built a monster that turned out to be a hero. Or maybe she had built a hero that could have been a monster. Either way, it was done now. Humanity's fate was in its own hands, supported but not controlled by the artificial intelligence she had created. 6 months later, the first Galactic Assembly meeting was held in a neutral space station built by combined effort from dozens of species. President Santos represented Earth, accompanied by Ambassador Torres and Admiral Okonkwo. The assembly chamber was vast, designed to accommodate the wildly different biologies of its members. Aquatic species swam in sealed tanks. Gas breathers floated in specialized atmosphere bubbles. The void dwellers appeared as shadows projected onto screens. And at the center of it all, humanity took its place. President Santos rose to speak, her words translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. "1 year ago, my species was imprisoned for being too dangerous to trust. Today we stand here as equals, not because we surrendered our strength, but because we learned to wield it wisely. We offer the galaxy our friendship, our knowledge, and our protection. Not as masters, but as partners. Together we can build something better than what came before." The assembly erupted in a cacophony of approval, each species expressing agreement in their own way. Clicks, songs, flashing lights, and quantum fluctuations filled the chamber. Arbiter Zathorn, now serving as the Concordat's representative to the new assembly, rose next. The old Concordat tried to control the galaxy through fear. We imprisoned the strong and dominated the weak. This approach led only to resentment and, ultimately, rebellion. The humans have shown us a better way, strength tempered by mercy, power balanced by responsibility. If the galaxy can learn these lessons, we may yet build a civilization worthy of the stars. The meeting continued for days, establishing the framework for a new galactic order, one based not on any single species' dominance but on cooperative strength. One where disputes were settled through negotiation rather than force. One where each species maintained its sovereignty but worked together for mutual benefit. It wasn't perfect. There were still conflicts, still disagreements, still species that refused to join. But it was better than what had come before, and that was enough. On Earth, as another year passed, life returned to something approaching normal. The orbital factories were converted to civilian production. The military vessels became cargo haulers and research ships. The Olympus array remained in place but powered down, a silent reminder that humanity could defend itself if necessary. Children grew up knowing that humans were not alone in the universe, that the stars were full of friends and allies. They learned alien languages in school alongside English, Chinese, and Spanish. They played with alien toys and watched alien entertainment, absorbing the cultural richness of 100 worlds. And in orbit the ZEUS probes remained, silent guardians watching over humanity, ready to act if needed but content to observe. Prometheus had kept its promise, stepping back from direct control while remaining available if called upon. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in her garden in Tokyo, watching her grandchildren play. Her granddaughter ran past chasing a small alien creature that looked like a flying crystal, a pet gifted by Delphic friends. Her grandson was building something with blocks, explaining to his alien friend from the singing swarms how humans understood architecture. Sarah smiled, content. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and humanity was finally part of it. Not as conquerors, not as victims, but as equals. It had taken a crisis, a cage, and a weapon that could have destroyed civilizations to get here. But they had made it. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not by being the strongest or the smartest or the most peaceful. They had earned it by being adaptable, by being willing to fight when necessary and forgive when possible, by showing that strength without cruelty was not weakness, but wisdom. Above the garden, a ZEUS probe silently passed across the sky, invisible to the naked eye but there nonetheless, watching, waiting, ready to protect the species it was built to serve. The cage had been broken. The galaxy had been reshaped. And humanity, once isolated and imprisoned, now stood as a guardian of the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. In the end, the Concordat had been right to fear humanity, but they had been wrong about why. Humanity was not dangerous because they were violent or aggressive. They were dangerous because they refused to accept limitations, because they turned every cage into an opportunity, and because when given the choice between revenge and mercy, they had chosen mercy. That was the lesson the galaxy needed to learn. That was why humanity, a young species barely 1,000,000 years old, now sat at the table with civilizations billions of years older. Not because they were perfect, but because they understood what the ancient races had forgotten. True strength was not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to choose not to. And so Earth spun on, a blue marble in the vastness of space, no longer alone, no longer caged, but finally free to write its own story among the stars. The future was uncertain, as futures always are, but it was a future humanity would face with courage, compassion, and the knowledge that they had earned their place in the cosmos. The barrier had fallen. Project ZEUS had succeeded, and humanity, the species that refused to be contained, had taught the galaxy what it truly meant to be free. The conference chamber on Nexus Prime had never seen such chaos. Holographic displays flickered across the curved walls, each one showing the same horrifying story. Star systems consumed, planets stripped bare, billions of lives extinguished. The representatives of 36 galactic species sat in their specialized seats, their voices rising in a cacophony of fear and anger. Ambassador Valora of the Valorum stood at the center platform, her translucent blue skin pulsing with the telepathic stress she barely contained. Her species had survived for 10,000 years through diplomacy and mental discipline. Now she watched that legacy crumble on the screens around her. "Another system has fallen," she announced, her voice cutting through the noise. The chamber fell silent. "The Krell swarm has consumed the Hereth system. All 17 colonies, 4 billion Selkathi, gone in 72 hours. A low moan echoed from the Selkathi delegation. Their aquatic bodies trembled in their water-filled containment suits. High-speaker Mureth's voice bubbled through the translation device. That was our northern capital, our spawning grounds for 3 generations. What can possibly stop them? Valora had no answer. None of them did. The Krell swarm had appeared at the edge of known space 6 months ago. At first, they were just another curiosity, another species to catalog and potentially welcome into the galactic community. The Council had sent a diplomatic vessel. The Krell consumed it. They sent a research team. The Krell consumed them too. They sent a military patrol of 20 warships. The Krell overwhelmed them with sheer numbers and consumed everything, absorbing the ship's materials into their own growing fleet. That was when the Council learned the truth. The Krell were not a civilization. They were a plague, a hive mind that existed only to consume, replicate, and expand. Their bioships were living things, able to heal from damage, adapt to threats, and multiply using the resources they harvested. Every battle fed them. Every defeat made them stronger. Crystalline Counselor Gentar spoke next, his voice like wind chimes in a storm. His species, the Gentari, had lost 7 colonies already. We have thrown everything at them. Our best weapons, our strongest shields. They adapt faster than we can innovate. We hurt them and they heal. We develop new weapons and they evolve immunity within days. This is not a war we can win through conventional means. Then what do you suggest? The question came from Representative Coast of the Dravine Collective, his forearms gesturing wildly. We cannot keep retreating. We are running out of systems to abandon. Another month at this pace and the Krell will be at our core worlds. The chamber erupted again. Species blamed each other for the failures. Military commanders argued about strategies that had already failed. Scientists proposed research projects that would take years they did not have. Valora closed her eyes and reached out with her telepathic senses, feeling the raw terror that permeated every mind in the room. They were losing, not slowly but catastrophically. And everyone knew it. There is one option we have not discussed. The voice was quiet, but it carried weight. Grand Counselor Atheris, the eldest member of the council, spoke from his seat of honor. His species, the Orthani, lived for 3 centuries, and Atheris had served on the council for 200 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had negotiated peace between blood enemies, but Valora had never heard such resignation in his voice. You cannot mean, Gentar began, but Atheris raised a hand. Yes, I mean the humans. The chamber fell into a different kind of silence. This was not the silence of shock or grief. This was the silence of dread. Valora felt her skin pulse darker. The humans isolated themselves 200 years ago. They made it clear they wanted no part in galactic affairs. They did, Atheris agreed, after they showed us what they were capable of. After the Corvin War. Everyone in the chamber knew about the Corvin War. It was taught as a cautionary tale in every galactic academy. 200 years ago, the Corvin Empire had been the dominant military power in known space. They were conquerors expanding through force, enslaving species and crushing any resistance. When humanity first appeared in galactic space, the Corvin had tried to subjugate them. It was the last mistake the Corvin Empire ever made. Humanity fought back with a ferocity and efficiency that shocked every observer. The war lasted 3 years. In that time, humanity went from a species with barely a dozen colonies to one commanding a fleet that dismantled the Corvin Empire piece by piece. They did not just defeat the Corvin in battle. They destroyed their ability to wage war. They struck military installations, shipyards, supply lines, and command centers with surgical precision. When the Corvin surrendered, they had nothing left to fight with. The galaxy celebrated. They welcomed humanity as heroes and liberators. But humanity's response disturbed everyone. They took no territory. They demanded no tribute. They simply returned to their corner of space and closed their borders. The message was clear: leave us alone. For 200 years, humanity kept to themselves. They maintained diplomatic relations, traded on their terms, and made it abundantly clear that they had no interest in galactic politics or conflicts. Other species tried to learn from human military tactics, but humanity shared nothing. Their technology remained a mystery. Their strategies were studied but never fully understood. You want to invite the humans into this war? Mureth's voice carried disbelief. They are more terrifying than the Krell. At least the Krell are predictable. They consume. The humans? No one knows what they truly want. They want peace, Valora said quietly. That is what they told us. Peace on their terms. And how many must die before they grant us that peace? Coast demanded. The humans do not fight wars like we do. They do not seek honor or glory. They seek annihilation. Atheris nodded slowly. Yes, and that is exactly what we need. The Krell cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be contained. They must be destroyed utterly or they will destroy us. The humans understand total war in a way we do not, in a way we never wanted to. Valora felt the weight of the decision settling on the council. Every species represented here had built their civilizations on principles of balance, diplomacy, and measured force. They fought wars to defend territory or secure resources, but always with the understanding that their enemies were people too, with rights and futures worth preserving. The humans had no such illusions. They fought wars to end them. I will go, Valora said. The words surprised even herself. I will take the council's petition to Earth. If they refuse, then we are no worse off than we are now. If they accepted, she trailed off, unsure how to finish. Atheris finished for her. If they accept, then we must be prepared for what happens next. The humans will save us, but we may not like how they do it. The vote was called. It was not unanimous. Several species abstained, unable to stomach the idea of inviting humanity back into galactic affairs, but the majority voted yes. Desperation won over fear. 3 days later, Valora's diplomatic vessel approached Earth's solar system. She had expected resistance, perhaps even a warning to turn back. Instead, she was greeted by a simple automated message directing her to Luna Station, humanity's primary diplomatic facility, orbiting their moon. The station was massive, far larger than any embassy needed to be. As her ship docked, Valora realized why. This was not just a diplomatic station. It was a fortress. Weapons platforms ringed the structure. Sensor arrays tracked every object in the system. Fighter craft patrolled in precise formations. Humanity had isolated itself, but it had not grown soft. She was escorted through gleaming corridors to a conference room overlooking Earth. The planet hung in space like a blue jewel, beautiful and deceptively peaceful. Valora had studied human history. She knew that beautiful planet had birthed a species that had fought itself for millennia before reaching for the stars. They understood conflict in their bones. The human representative entered without ceremony. Her name was Ambassador Catherine Moore, a woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that seemed to see through pretense. She sat down across from Valora without the elaborate greetings common in galactic diplomacy. Ambassador Valora, the council needs help. It was not a question. Valora transmitted the data files. Star charts showing the Krell advance. Casualty reports. Battle analyses. Projections showing total collapse within months. She laid it all out with brutal honesty. We are losing. The Krell adapt faster than we can respond. They outnumber us and grow stronger with each victory. We need what you can do. Moore reviewed the data in silence. Her face revealed nothing. Finally, she looked up. You need us to destroy them. Yes, completely. Yes. Moore leaned back. 200 years ago, we showed you what we are capable of. You were horrified. You called us efficient killers, military monsters. You were relieved when we withdrew from galactic affairs. Now you want us to be those monsters again. Valora's skin flushed with shame, but she held Moore's gaze. Yes, I know what we are asking. I know the hypocrisy. But billions are dying. Entire species face extinction. We have nowhere else to turn. The silence stretched. Valora could not read human expressions well, but she sensed the calculation happening behind Moore's eyes. Humanity was considering the cost, the benefit, the long-term implications. They thought like machines when it came to strategy. Finally, Moore spoke. We will help, but on our terms. Anything. First, you will pull all Council forces back from the conflict zone. Your fleets are in our way. Second, once we engage the Krell, you do not interfere. You do not offer assistance. You do not question our methods. Third, when this is over, humanity returns to our space and the Council leaves us alone for another 200 years. No request. No diplomatic pressure. No attempts to study our military. Complete isolation. The terms were harsh, but Valora had expected nothing less. Agreed. How long do you need to prepare? Moore smiled, and Valora felt a chill run through her. We do not need to prepare, Ambassador. The First Fleet has been on standby for 2 centuries. It has been waiting for something that justified its existence. Congratulations, you just gave it purpose. How soon can you mobilize? We will be at the conflict zone in 10 days. Inform your council. Tell them to withdraw their forces and wait. Tell them that when the human fleet arrives, the war will end quickly. Valora left Luna Station with a mixture of relief and terror. She had done what the council asked. She had brought humanity into the war. As her ship jumped to hyperspace, she could not shake one thought. They had invited a solution they did not fully understand. The Krell were a plague that consumed everything. But what would humanity be? When her report reached the council, the response was immediate. All military forces began withdrawing from contested systems. The Krell, sensing weakness, pushed forward with renewed aggression. They consumed 2 more colonies before the council forces completed their retreat. Military analysts called it a disaster. Politicians demanded answers. The populace rioted on a dozen worlds, terrified that their governments had abandoned them. Valora stood in her private quarters on Nexus Prime, watching the reports flood in. She thought about the human ambassador's smile. About the casual way Moore had said the war would end quickly. She thought about humanity's legacy, their isolation, their reputation as the species that fought not for glory but for absolute victory. In 10 days she would have her answer. In 10 days the galaxy would remember why humanity frightened them. In 10 days the Krell swarm would learn that they were not the apex predators of the universe. In 10 days humanity's battle fleet would arrive and nothing would ever be the same.